It depends on what class they're in. Okay, so here's 15.1. I can compute the volume of prisms and cylinders. So that's all we're doing today. We're computing volumes of some fairly simple shapes. Prisms, fancy word for a box. We'll talk about that again in just a second. And cylinders. Okay? So if you had to describe area, what would you say? Anybody want to take a stab at it? D?
Space in a shape that's in a 2D shape.
Okay, space in a 2D shape. So 2D, let me write it this way, 2D space. Okay? So what do you want to try for volume? Dane? Same thing but 3D. So we're going to say 3D space. So the big difference between these is area is 2D and volume is 3D. Okay? So we're going to need 2 dimensions in order to compute that flat area. Okay? And we're going to need 3 dimensions in order to compute that 3-dimensional volume, that 3-dimensional space. So here's, if you've been paying attention, area of a rectangle.
A times B.
Not quite.
What?
Lizzie. Okay, length times width would work just fine. You could also do base times height. Either one of those would be okay.
Why doesn't A times B work?
Well, you'd have to define what those are. Okay, where L and W work for length and width, and B and H work for base times height. What about area of a circle? People confuse this all the time. Got to keep these straight.
Is it R?
Zach, what do you got?
Base times height times width.
No, for a circle?
Oh, for a circle. Pi r squared.
Pi r squared.
I
There
was
you
gonna
go.
say that.
Pi r squared. Don't confuse that with 2 pi r. We square the radius, so we've got square units here. So 2 pi r is the circumference of the circle. It's just a length. It's 1 dimension. Okay. Pi r squared, that's going to be the area. And can somebody raise their hand and tell us formula for the area of a triangle? Area of a triangle. Angela? 1/2 length times width, or I'm going to do base times height if that's okay with you. Okay, same idea. Okay, so with those formulas and those ideas in mind, now we're going to talk about volume of a prism, okay, and volume of a cylinder. So the volume is the amount of 3-dimensional space something takes up. Again, we talked about this a second ago. We need those 3 dimensions in order to take up that 3-dimensional space. So we're going to need 3 measurements. Okay, it's measured in cubic units. So cubic feet, cubic meters, cubic yards, whatever that happens to be. Okay, and we're going to use those to figure out prisms, cylinders, pyramids, cones, spheres. We're going to do a whole bunch of stuff this week. So we're going to start with a prism. Now, I'm going to write a big capital B right here, okay, which you may or may not have seen in formulas before. So when we talk about a prism is kind of like a box, okay? So it's another name for a box. Okay, a box with kind of rectangular or parallelogram sides. And the base is a parallelogram. It's often a rectangle. So this is a right rectangular prism. This over here is called a parallelepiped. That's the fancy name for it. It's basically just a box that's been pushed over and slanted a little bit. So it doesn't matter if it's slanted. Okay? You can think of this as the area of the base. So B is the area of the base. Okay? And if you wanted to, you could think of it a different way. And I think Zach was onto this earlier. We could think of the volume as the length times the width times the height. And a lot of people, if you say, hey, what's the volume of a prism? They don't say capital B times H. They say it's the length times the width times the height. So if you want to remember it either way, there are advantages to both. This kind of is a good way to remember in the long term, that big capital B times the height. Okay, but this works really well here. So if you're going to find the volume of each one of these prisms, the volume here would be the area of the base. So I'm going to kind of shade that in. So we kind of have to bring this around here, and this would be, wow, this is enormous. This is in miles. So the length would be 8. The width would be 7. Okay, that right there is the area of the base, and then all we have to do is just multiply it by how tall it is. 3 miles tall. Now, I could keep miles times miles times miles, or just remember we're going to have this in, in cubic miles. MI. And we do 8 times 7, so that's 56. 56 times 3, 168. So 168 cubic miles.
Oh.
Doesn't make any difference if it's slanted like this is right here, but we do have to be careful about this. Okay, now on this one, on this particular example, they didn't give you any of these slanted heights, but we're not using any of those slanted heights for the height. It has to be the distance from the base, that flat base on the bottom, to whatever that highest point is. So on this one, the area of the base is this right here. So the volume on this would be 6 times 4. That's going to be the area of the base. And then if they did try and confuse us by giving us the slanted height right here, we'd want to be smart enough not to use that. We want to know what is the height from the bottom to the top. So that's 5 yards. So we'd multiply here. So let's see. 6 times 4 is 24. Times 5, 120. So this is going to be 120 yards cubed. Okay, everybody good with that?
You can't times something
Hold
by
up.
5 and get an 8.
We good?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just thinking.
Okay. So if we're talking about a cylinder, the idea is exactly the same. So we're talking about this three-dimensional space. We're going to take the area of the base, and we're going to multiply it by the height. So the formula looks the same, where the base is a circle. And what other variables could we use? Well, if the base is a circle, then we need to find the area of the base. Pi r squared. So the other formula that we would use here, so instead of using b times h, we're going to do pi r squared. And then we're going to multiply that by the height. So this, let my computer catch up here, pi r squared, that's going to be the base. Just like we had up above, we had length times width for the base. Now we've got pi r squared, that's going to be the area of that circular base right here. So this stuff right in here. And then we multiply it by how tall it is. So most people, if you said, hey, what's the formula for the volume of a cylinder? They would say pi r squared h. They wouldn't say capital B times h. Okay? So in the long run, I think we're probably better thinking of a prism as length times width times height, and the volume of a cylinder as pi r squared times h. Everybody good there?
So the B is pi r squared.
The B is pi r squared, the area of the base. The capital B stands for the area of the base. So the volume on this one is going to be pi r squared, so that's going to be 5, and the height is 12. And all we have to keep track of is when we square the 5, we're squaring centimeters. And when we multiply by the 12, we're multiplying by another centimeter. So this is going to be centimeters cubed. And we'll grab the calculator, and we're going to do, let's see here, pi times 5 squared times 12. So 942.48.
Yes.
See some shaking heads, see some yeses?
Yes.
942.48. Okay.
Oh, that's lit.
Does it matter if it's slanted?
Dude, this is easy.
Does it matter if it's slanted?
No.
Nope.
No.
Okay, another word for slanted is oblique. So would you find the answer on that one? And you do have to be just slightly careful on that one. So find the answer to B. Get your answer, check with your neighbor, make sure you did it right.
I got it.
Where's pi at? Where's pi? Where is the pi button?
Don't blurt it.
Got that.
The slanted height?
Yeah. Then
You were
write it
given the
down.
slanted height?
I don't want to write
Yeah, you could use the Pythagorean theorem if it's in the right
Not
place.
give Prue notes, because he doesn't do them.
Really?
I wrote circle and the answer's right here.
Okay, Sai, what'd you get? Okay, say
What?
that again. 1,000? 100?
He fell to the trick.
30? Point? 98. And that would be in inches
That's just got him.
cubed.
He got
Okay?
him.
Is that right? Okay, was that right? No. Okay, how many got that?
Oh,
Oh, come on. Nobody else? All right. Okay. Sai, there's some people that would politely disagree and they think you got the answer wrong. They think that you fell for something. Do you see what the problem is? What did you use for the radius? I just randomly chose on Sai. Sai, what mistake did you make? Yeah, you used the diameter, not the radius. What's the radius? Radius is 3. So we should do pi, and then we're going to do 3 squared, and then we're going to multiply it by the height of 10. So throw that in the calculator, and then we should get the right answer. And what is the correct answer?
282.74 inches cubed. Squared.
You're so smart.
Okay, raise your hand if you agree. Perfect. Okay. All right. Will you flip the page over, please?
Yeah, I wait.
See those notes, Wilson?
We're going to do a problem like this. Anybody have any ideas?
Diameter's 30, so you half it, and then times it by pi.
I like Wilson's idea. First thing we're going to do, I might draw a picture.
Cylindrical.
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 True. So,
Cylindrical. I'll say cylindrical. Cylindrical.
And the height's 20,
I like word.
both in meters.
yes.
Megan, what are the units on the answer? Meters cubed. Okay, go ahead and get your answer.
I always write it 2 when I know it's 3.
Dane, you got this one?
Oh, diameter.
Oh, okay.
That's like
Here you go.
I'm gonna draw a
Tens.
cylindrical
These two
tank.
six-
oil coffee.
Real quick. How do you draw such good cylindrical
You
tanks?
draw an oval and draw some lines straight down, and then draw another oval.
I drew a square. Let me draw
So
that real
pi
Oh, wait.
15 squared times 20. Hannah, what have you got?
Heights.
I know what I
14,000 what?
No, it's about 15.
Square.
What?
Oh my gosh, that's a big number. Oh, I got it. Lit.
Samara, do you agree? Okay, perfect. Okay, next one. The volume of a cylinder is 615.8 cubic meters and its height is 4 meters. It says find the diameter. Okay, Sai, what word should we pay attention to here? Diameter. Okay, we want to make sure that we're finding the diameter. So the formula is pi r squared h, right?
Oh,
What'd they give us?
the answer, the volume.
They gave us the volume, so they gave us 615.8 would be equal to pi. We don't know the radius though. So we're going to do pi and then r squared. They did give us the height, so the height is going to be 4.
yeah.
I don't know how to do this. You have the
Andy,
square roots.
Andy, what's the first step we should do to solve this? 4 and? We could move them one at a time, but we can also move what? 4 and the pi. So we're going to divide both sides by 4 pi. So grab your calculator. We'd have r squared on one side, and then whatever 615 divided by 4 pi r, 4 pi is. You do have to be careful on the calculator though. So would everybody grab the calculator? I'm going to shrink this down so it's a little bit smaller. Slide that over.
Let's put the pi, 4 pi in parentheses, because then it would.
What is
divide
that,
by
Wilson?
4 and then times it by pi.
Very good. You got to do 615.8. Then if you're going to divide, so we got to do the 0.8. Then if you're going to divide, you want to divide by both of those. So there's a couple different ways you can do this. You could put it in as a fraction, then make it clear that it's on the bottom. You can put them both in parentheses, or you can hit divide by 4 and then divide by pi. I'm just going to put this in parentheses. So here's our 4 pi. And then Crew's going to tell us how to finish this off once we get our answer right there. So r squared is going to be, holy cow, this is taking its time.
Whoa, 49.
Basically 7.
Huh? Wait, did you do 4 times pi divided? Or is that not?
You could do that if you wanted to. But Crew, we got r squared equals this ugliness right here.
Pretty
That should be an
ugly.
8.
And no putting plus or minus. You can't have negative.
What do you do?
Ah, I think you square root it.
Take the square root of both sides. Too
You
bad
get
he
plus
didn't
or
say it
minus.
right. Luke, do we need a plus or minus?
No,
Why not?
because negative distance doesn't exist.
Not in our real world. So the radius would be 7
Maybe it's an imaginary
meters, right?
volume.
So aliens would do plus or minus.
Maybe.
Okay.
Wanted to.
All right.
Pretend so it's
Take a look at the last problem.
negative
No, it's not.
Here's what I'd like you to do.
Incorrect.
Thank you very much. You don't think that's correct?
No.
7? Yeah.
The radius is 7, but it's actually the diameter.
Oh, there we go. Nice. Very nice. Oh, way to go. Okay. So the answer on this one, we need the diameter. Diameter is 14 meters. Very good. Nice job. And my computer is taking forever to write stuff down today. All right. So while that's coming up, here's what I'd like you to do. Scoot together with these 2 rows. Si, will you come sit up here? Okay. You guys work together, and then Luke and Andy, you guys work together, and you work together. You already did the last one? Yeah, you need work though.
We have it all here.
Oh, we'll write it down. Okay.
Oh,
Do the last problem. Figure out if she's right and explain the answer. Don't just write yes or no. Explain whether or not she's right about that.
I bought